So, good afternoon, gentlemen. I think the very few people are here, but I think by the time I start, many other people will come join. So, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to this program, today's program. Today we'll be taking the session on the subject of talent management, and the topics will be talent identification and development plan. Last time, if you remember, we had a session on talent acquisition, and in that we have discussed about how acquiring people, talented people from the environment is important for any organization. What are the process and procedure that has to be adopted? I suppose since number of people are very less, so I'm not going to ask you any question. If at all you have got, you can ask me. But otherwise, I'll just announce one. You have got anything to ask for my last session on talent acquisition, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll go ahead. But okay, should I go ahead? Anybody, any question on talent acquisition?
Yes, sir.
Continue?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
you can continue.
Okay. So today's topics is talent identification and development. Let me go to that our presentation first. Here is your presentation. Talent identification and development. As you know that in talent management, the important thing is to create a pool of talented people in the organization with the very purpose that right people at the right time at the right place should be employed so that the organizational objectives and goals and everything is achieved properly. So with that purpose, there are many topics that you have seen, but today we'll see that how the talent has to be identified and how the development is to be done, a brief idea about that. So the first thing is talent identification and development. The name suggests itself how to identify the talent. What are the parameters by which you will decide which talent is suitable for the organization? If you remember, it was defined initially about the talent. Talent is a special skill and ability of any person, a special gift within a person, but the most practical definition is that that skill or capability should be able to contribute to the organizational performance. If it contributes to the organizational performance, then we'll consider it as a talent. So if that is so, there are various steps in the talent management that if you remember that first you have to get people, acquire people, then you have to develop people, then you have to retain people in the organization, right? So in the first step, when you talk of talent identification here means there are two things. Number one, the talented people within the organization, how can we identify them and we can develop them and make them prepared for the tomorrow's requirement. And also how to identify people from outside who have got the special talent suitable to the organization. So it's a process of identifying talented people. And since the topic is on talent identification and development, identifying the talented people and developing them. Merely identification is not going to help us because anybody you take from outside, if you're taking people from outside, you need to develop them as per the requirement and suitability of the organization. He has to be made as per the organizational requirement, depending upon the organizational objectives and strategies, right? So the talented people identification is required and to develop them for what? For today and for tomorrow, the current requirement as well as the future requirement. And you're going to search for making the identification for the existing people who are already working in the organization. Because many times it happens in any organization that there are talented people, but since they were not, it was not identified. So even sometimes a very good person, a very capable person, he may not be working in the particular role or the position where he should work, and that becomes a wastage of a manpower, wastage of a human resource. So we need to identify the existing people, what are their potentials within them, what are the talents within them, and are they being properly placed wherever they should work, wherever they should be engaged in. That's something very important for an organization. So apart from the existing people, we need to find out who are the potential people, candidates on the outside, who are for whom we can make a selection and make them, bring them to the organization. So the potential candidates. As also here, one more thing implies here. Sometimes a person may not have the exactly whatever is required, but he has got a potential within him. We need to identify certain people, maybe at the initial stages, they have got the potential, but they are not really being able to contribute to the extent it's required. Then there is a possibility that you can develop them, and by making develop them the way we want, the organization wants, and make them really suitable for a particular position. And the purpose of all this thing, doing all these things, is so that they should be able to contribute to the achievement of the organizational objective. Ultimate goal is always organizational objective. So it's a process of identifying people, developing people for today, for tomorrow, from the existing people and from the potential people, so that they can contribute to the development of the organization. So, although we have seen, we'll see some elaborate steps of doing this thing. There are four basic things which we always talk in talent management. Always talk about, and we must keep it in our mind that there are four basic steps in that. Number one, assessing the talent pool needs. Now, for any organization, if we want to identify people, the first requirement will be what is our requirement? That is the requirement. What is the requirement? Because our identification will be done as per the requirement of the organization. And when you talk of requirement of the organization, then how that requirement is to be found? The requirement has to be found out by seeing two things: what is the capability of the existing people, and what is the expected capability of the people. And if there is a difference, there is a gap between the expected performance, expected potential, expected capability, and the existing capability, then there is a need for creating further talent pool, either by hiring or by developing people. So you need to fill that gap. So the first one is making an assessment of the talent pool, that how much you are deficient in the organization in terms of the qualities and capabilities of people when you look at the entire portfolio of the job, different kinds of jobs, right? So in terms of their skill and capabilities, and this is one aspect. Now, when you get the talent that talent pool needs, then there is a direction for the organization. That's what you are looking for. We are looking for a particular kind of people with particular skill, particular experience, particular expertise, right? Of different cases, right? So then there we can go for and spot the talented people. Who are the talented people in the uh, organization as well as outside? There is a need for finding out that. And in that process, there are certain qualities, the basic qualities that you need to see, that a talented people, whether he has got the leadership qualities, because tomorrow we are also going to create tomorrow's leaders today. So, what are the leadership qualities within a person? If there is, it's a good point. What are the management potential? The people have got managerial capability, right? Although when you say leadership, leadership is not merely managerial capability; it's a different capabilities also along with that. But when you make a little go further, there is a requirement of managerial capability also, and the people who have got subject matter expertise, the different areas of subject where they have got the should the people the people who are searching for have got that subject matter expertise, the areas in which you are searching for that. What are the people? There are some people who may have got certain key knowledge, a specific knowledge, specific skill. So look for those things of the leadership qualities, the management potential, subject matter, or a key knowledge. So we'll look for those qualities in the talented people, whether it is in the organization or on the outside, in both the places. And then when you find out those people, so there may be two situations. Number one, we'll hire people from outside of these qualities and skills which is required. Or the other thing is we'll identify those people within the organization who have got those qualities which are suitable for the organizational requirement. And then the next point is to develop them. You see, when you talk of development, the development is always required, right? They are the raw material. The talented person may be raw material only. And that raw material has to be developed as per the requirement of the organization, and not only that, as per the changing requirement of the organization, the changing scenario, the changing situation. For every point of time, things are changing. As the things are changing, their knowledge, their capabilities, everything, and their attitude even has to be changed, right? So we need to develop people, developing in terms of giving them new exposure. So in that process, maybe there is a requirement of making job rotation. The people when they go to different kinds of jobs, their knowledge and experience, domain of experience and knowledge becomes more wider, and that is required. So a person only working in one position may not have a complete overview and understanding of the organizational performance, organizational different functions of the organization. So need to make that kind of job rotation so that people can get more exposure, more experience. So by developing people, by giving the different kinds of, as you say also otherwise, the cases, giving them the requisite knowledge, the skills, and the attitude, by that you can develop people for tomorrow, those from those people. And of course, it is always said that in any talent management process, retaining them is important. Retainment is a very, very important issue, right? And how we can retain them, I think earlier also you have talked about in detail that retaining people, for that we have to make them engaged, keep them engaged in the organization. Engaged in terms of giving them the satisfaction in the organization. They feel that they're working in the organization, then that they are really feeling that they should remain in this organization, and they're developing that sense of belongingness to the organization in terms of getting the requisite environment, requisite behavior from the people, the rewards, the recognitions, and all those kinds of things. So that when they get in the organization, they will remain. So these four basic things are always to be kept in mind, uh, even in case of this talent identification and development. Now we'll see further what's there we can talk about. Now, in a talent identification and development, what are the driving factors? What are the driving factors here means that what are the factors that will make us ensure that the things are going on well and if the things are going in the right direction. And when we'll feel that there is a requirement of making talent identification and development. So that is number one, and the need for speed. I think you understand the basic premises on which a talent management is based, that there should not have any paucity or dearth of people who are required at a particular point of time. We must get the right kind of people at the right time so that we can praise them. So for that, the things have to be done with a speed, lot of speed, because we should always be ready with people. We cannot think that the requirement will come and then we'll start searching for the people or developing people. No. So there is a need for speed is there. And when there is a need for speed, we need to make a identification and development program should always be ready so that we are always wherever required, whenever required, we can get people in the organization. A seller's market for skills. You know, it's a today there is a market, for skilled people. People are searching for skilled people. When people are searching for skilled people, every organization has to be on their toes for identifying people and trying to get them within the organization. Because if anything that is most important today is a human resource, and that is probably the most scarce resource, because a particular person or a good person or a capable person or a talented person can change the history of any organization. So therefore, it's a seller's market for skills, and so we need to be the organizations need to be at their toes to get the people. That's one driving force for them to make this program of talent identification and development. Reduce loyalty. That's another very dangerous question. Loyalties are gradually reducing. As you've seen the earlier years, earlier decades, the people are more loyal, but today generally the people are not that loyal. And so because of that, there is large turnover. And when there is a large turnover, we should always remain ready, and not only ready with people, ready with talented people, ready with quality. The quality people. If you cannot do that, then you are missing somewhere. You are missing in the competition, right? So, because of the reduced loyalty, we need to become very cautious about this, that you are not missing somewhere and you are always ready. The importance of intellectual capital and knowledge management, that's very important. Intellectual capital, today you see that today human capital is the most important thing. And if the people are talented, that's a very useful capital for any organization. And their knowledge is also very, very highly important. So if we can get better people, intellectual people, talented people, knowledgeable people, that's going to be an asset for the organization. So the organization should always search for those things and remain ready with those things. Key importance of values and competencies. Now, today there is large importance of the competent people. Competency, as in everything is moving around that competency and the value. People who have got values. Now, so if there is requirement of speed, requirement of being a seller's market, there's a need, the requirement of skilled people, loyalty is reducing, importance of this capital. So for all these things directs any organization to go in for the talent identification and development program. Otherwise, they cannot really survive in the competition. That becomes a driving factor. Well, we'll see what are the conditions for making the program effective. We're trying to look at the things from different points of view. You want to make this talent identification and development program more effective. How can you do that? What are the things we should be? Our program should be, the organization's program should be very specific, very clear, not ambiguous in any term. It has to be clear how much, what kind of qualities and skills required. That has to be very, very specific. It has to be broad in the sense, uh, keeping in view all their capabilities, their management competence, their attitude, their knowledge, their skills, everything has to be kept in mind, and then you should go for the talent identification process. It should be supported and supportive. Yes, if you want to make it effective, the number one, it has to be supported by the top management. If you cannot, don't get that, probably you cannot make that program effective. And it must be supported by the people below who are at the helm of the affairs, who are doing the thing. It's not making merely a formality, but rather they must go deep inside the organization's requirement, organization's strategy and objective, and the requirement of people, the specific requirement of people, and they should go in for this process. And there must be a system, a very systematic process should be there. And when and how we are going to get the thing, what is the point where we should start searching for people, how we're going to get them, how they are going to be deployed, how they are going to develop at different levels, at different kinds of works. So those have to be very, very systematic. And ultimately, everything should be has to be focused on the development of the organization. Needless to say, that is always to be mm, kept in mind. So now let us see there are certain steps to be followed. Those steps are, I'll be just looking at the specific points here. The number one, the commitment of management for doing any talent identification development process. The requirements when are trying to see, number one, there should have commitment of management. If it is not there, nothing can happen. Commitment of management in terms of they should look at the things from these points of view. They must look at the what are the problems in the organization, maybe in terms of high turnover, maybe in terms of lack of performance in the organization. What are the things that makes them committed? Yes, we should go in for this talent identification and development process. It must be made clear to them, and they must be committed to that. So what are the existing process of solving the problem? So far earlier, whenever there is a requirement of people at different positions, what is the process like? What is the process being followed earlier, right? And was that sufficient, or we should do something new? Because when you're going to make a new program, we can incorporate new things which are really uh, good for the organization. Organization has to become understand things from today's scenario, and from that point of view, they should also look into the fact that how their competitors are working in the market. What kind of people they are hiring, how they're developing their people, what is the capability of their people as far as possible should try to understand that. The management should understand that. And accordingly, they should also try to bring those things in the organization, and they must have commitment to it. What are the possible solutions if there is a problem in the organization, issue in the organization? Yes, in terms of a requirement, there is a performance gap. And if there is a performance gap, what is the possible solution? By developing people, by hiring people, by hiring how much, by developing in what way, to what extent, so that possible solutions are to be seen. What are the existing policies? Who is making the policy? How the policies are being made? And what are the policies in a nutshell? That every management must should try to understand and see that. Excuse me, and just well. So the first point was the commitment of management. Align with organizational strategy. Now, as you know earlier, that organizational strategy is the guidance for any kind of decision to be taken, either in talent management or in many of the things, in most of the things. So, what is the organizational strategy? If you understand the organizational strategy, it will become more clear that how and what kind of development policy or the identification policy one should have. So, need to understand the organizational business plan. What is the business plan? In what way they are going to excel? Are they going to expand? Are they going to increase their product portfolio? Are they going to develop in terms of technology? What is the business plan? Are they going to go into the newer markets, right? And according to that, every kind of business plan will require a different set of people, different kind of people, quantitatively and qualitatively. And therefore, they should understand the organizational business plan. Organizational strategies and direction. What are the organizational strategies? How the organization is going to uh, make their presence felt in the market? What are the strategies? How they are going to um, deal with their competitors? What are their competitive priorities? What are the strengths by which they will create their own competitive priority? If there is an area of competitive priority, then you should look for the people who are more proficient and skilled in that particular area. So, organize strategies and what is the direction? In what way they are going to move? Are they going to become a specific leader in the market or the follower in the market? And all these kinds of things are to be seen. The next point is with the connecting talent needs to the organizational goal. Organizational goal is should be supported by the talent needs, because whatever is the organizational goal, it will determine that what kind of talented people are required, when it is required, how frequently it is required, how they need to be developed, and everything has to be seen from the organizational goal. And if the goal, whether you're looking for a long-term goal or in a short-term goal, even that becomes important. And if you have got a long-term goal, then how much time you have got to develop people. And if there is a short-term goal, then how quickly do you require people? So what is the process of identification and development? Analyze the present and the future scenario. So they need to analyze what is happening today and what is going to happen tomorrow in the future scenario. By analyzing that, one can understand what are the specific ways and paths through which they should go in for doing this identification and development process. They need to develop a system in the sense, develop system to accomplish the identification program. And as I said earlier, that everything has to become very systematic. But to develop a system that where we're going, how we're going to identify, what are the sources from where we're going to identify our people. If it is within the organization, then what will be the criteria? You have to develop a system in terms of the length of the service, the experience, the qualification, the qualities, and the potential appraisal, competency mapping. What are the things that to be taken? Those are to be, you need to develop a system, and that system has to be followed. Otherwise, if somebody does any program, identification program, development program, without any system, that's not going to give the real good result. Okay, so develop a system, identify the roles and functions. Who are the people who are going to do what? something which is being done by the HR department, maybe done by the training and development department, maybe done by the L&D department, something which is being done from the central office level. So what are the areas, what are the roles and functions of different people, who is going to do what, that has to be systematically developed. And for this, they need to develop a policy, a whole policy map, how the things are going to happen, when, how, in what periodicity, from where, what are the sources from where we're going to find out people, and how we're going to develop people, what kind of training and development you're going to give them, what kind of exposure, what kind of experience you're going to them, what kind of on-the-job training or off-the-job training you are going to give. So need to develop an entire policy. That policy will determine how much, even how much expenditure, expenses, what is the budget will be involved into it, where we are going to get the different kinds of training infrastructure, even that is to be seen. So then you develop a policy around which everything will proceed. And then there is a need for setting up a process. The process, step by step process. That is, first talent, the pool creation, need assessment of the talent, number one. Then you should look for the people outside who are the talented people. Then look for the people who are within the organization. Then bringing them in and then starting to develop them. This whole processing of the process in its nitty gritties, in its detail, has to be done. And also, for doing such a big thing in any organization, there need to have maintenance of the records and documentation. That is also a very important part. So how to maintain the records, or the methods and process to be adopted, how the documentations are to be done, those are to be developed as a system, so that everything is documented, and that becomes something which is can be seen the next time also, that what steps are fine, what steps are good, what steps are wrong, and what can be changed and developed further. Specifying the target candidates and groups. In that system also, there should be a continuous system of specifying the target candidates. What are the candidates who are targeted? Maybe outside, maybe inside. And the groups of people. We're getting the groups of people, the groups of potential candidates, maybe from a university or from some any other organizations. What are the places from where we are going to get people? So that specifying this target candidate, that's also becoming a part of the system. There is a need for setting up a communication process for, I mean, luring the and attracting the people outside. That the people, the potential candidates, they are to be communicated, and the organization has to tell them what is their important, the importance of the organization, what is the branding of the organization, how the organization is important, can be important for them, why should they come to this organization. Similarly, within the organization also, there should have a communication process, so that the interested people with requisite skills and capabilities can get an opportunity to uh, to get selected as a talented person, and so that he can be developed, and further steps can be taken in the process. So there is the requirement of developing the system. Now we have seen so far what is talent identification. It is identifying people, the talented people for the organization, so that they can be used as and when required for the development and the growth of the organization. We've seen there are certain basic steps. We've seen what are the driving factors in an organization. What are the factor that is driving what is the cause for doing this talent identification. Say for example, the high turnover. Lacking in loyalty, reduction in the loyalty of the people. That is one driving factor. So you need to be at the top and you start doing it. Then you have seen what are the steps to be followed, out of which you've seen that commitment of management is required, important. This process must align with the organizational strategy, and for everything you should need to develop certain systems. So there are many other steps which you'll see after this. But before going further, I would like to know if you have got any questions so far. You can please really ask me. Yes. Nobody has any question?
Continue, sir. Continue.
Hello?
Please continue, sir.
Yes? Little louder, please. If there's nobody, I'll go ahead. Yes, Mr. Agrawal, should I go ahead? There's no sound at all. Hello? Hello?
Sir, we can continue.
Continue? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, we are continuing with it. Our next important point while doing this identification and development process, talent identification development process, are identifying the levels and positions of people. Identifying the levels and position in the sense that in any organization, the requirement of people will be at different levels, right? It may be at the top management, it may at the middle management level, it may be at the junior level management, at different levels of management. So if there are different kinds of people, requirement of different kinds of people at different levels, so accordingly, the way of searching or the identification of people will become different because the top level management people, their identification is comparatively different from the people who are going to get people for the middle management or the junior management. So you need to identify the positions, the specific positions for which talent identification is required. Are you going to find out a position for a general manager or a junior management person or a regional manager? What kind of people are going to get at different positions? And maybe in terms of skill also, are you get a person who is a skilled in any particular area, skilled in the area of programming or the computer or the management or in the area of finance? So what are the positions for which talent identification is required? That has to be very specifically found out. Then specifying the level for which identification is required. The levels, as I said, whether these positions are required for what kind of level. Top management, middle management, junior management, what kind of level of people are required. And accordingly, depending upon the position, depending upon the responsibility that particular position is having, we one need to have a search for people accordingly. As you grow higher, the responsibility is more. So there, the searching for the people are more crucial because he is a person who is going to be leading other people. So there is a requirement of very specific way of uh, process and procedures through which you should be adopted. So specifying the level for the identification is required. The number of talented pools. Now this is another point. Number of talent pools in the sense that how many people do you want? What will be the pool? I mean, if there is a requirement of for every requirement of one person, how many people you want to keep? See the pool and the backup both. How many people you want to keep? Now, so if there is a position which is of crucial, crucial position of crucial importance, we cannot afford not to have a person as and when required. So maybe we may have to keep some people always reserved, not only one, maybe two, maybe three, that is to be decided. So what is the number of people as well as the backup per a position that has to be identified beforehand, because there is no point of thinking about it when there is a requirement and say no cutting a solid figure. That is not at all required in talent management process. So number of talent pools, the extent of backup, to what extent we should have a backup for different kinds of positions. Keeping in view the eventualities, turnover, retirement, wrong selection, poor performance, everything. Because, if we make an estimation of people which may be required, say for example, we say that we require Now at this middle level, middle management, we look at 10 people. Then we have to keep in mind all the eventuality, the turnover. What is the turnover ratio in the organization? So down the line, within 6 months or within 1 year, how many people are going to leave the organization? And that also we may have to make some assessment. Who are the people who are going to retire? If we say 10 people will have a pool of 10 people, then we must be very clear about how much we really are going to require, keeping in all these requirements, all these eventualities in mind. Also, sometimes what will happen, the earlier selection was wrong. The people are selected wrongly, so he will be useless for the organization. So we have to keep that also keep in mind, a backup for that. If the people are not performing properly, there is a poor performance in the organization. That is also to be kept in mind. So keeping all these factors, there should have enough margin for creating that pool of the backup. There should have enough margin so that as and when there is a requirement of people, that should be available immediately with a speed. Right. So identifying the level and position is very important issue while deciding about the identification and development. And then there is assessing the talent needs. What are the talent needs now? Now we have seen the pool and the backup, how many? Quantitatively. Now we'll see the qualitative aspect involved in that what kind of talents do we want? So we have to identify, the organization has to identify that needs of the talent. And that need of the talent will be founded from where job and task analysis. What kind of job, what kind of task, and what kind of qualities, qualification, experience, skill, attitude that is required in that particular position, and that will help us to understand the talent needs, right? And that again will be seen from the specific roles and job descriptions. What are the job descriptions? What are the kind of job descriptions that they will have? So accordingly, the people that you're going to select, the talent that you're going to find out should be according to that. There is a need for making the competency mapping. Even that is going to help the organization to find out the suitable need people. Competency mapping and listing out those people who are suitable in those areas as per the competency mapping, as per the job and task analysis, and the job descriptions. Another point will be the identification of values with respect to the position. I mean, the position, every position has got a specific value, and the people we are going to hire should have that kind of value. We should be able to find out that kind of value within it, and we have to search for that value, and we have to make it equated with the value of the specific position that is going to be filled up. So assessment of talent needs will not only see the qualities, the skills, the potential, the attitude, the values, all kinds of things have to be seen as what are the talent needs for specific roles. And this is to be done for today and for future, the present and the future. And when we talk of present and future, it is today very, very important, particularly in today's time, that cannot become, we must have a very proactive attitude. What's going to happen tomorrow? What are the eventualities that are going to happen tomorrow? What are the eventualities in terms of growth? What are the eventualities in terms of turnover? What are the eventualities in terms of people are leaving the organization? So those eventualities have to be kept in mind, and being proactive, we have to keep everything has to be done according to that and make the assessment of the talent needs. Let's see now, when you make that assessment of talent needs, then assess the employees. Now, when you say that as the first case we have seen, creating the pool, the backup, deciding about the pool, deciding about the backup. Second, we found out what are the talent needs, what kind of talent do we want, depending upon the position, the role where people are working. Now we have to find out the employees who are suitable for that. The potential employees or the existing employees are the matching to the talent needs that you have seen earlier. So you need to make the profile of the employees. What are the possible suitable people? The way is like this, and when you find out these are the talent needs in the organization, then you make a list of the people who are possibly most suitable for those positions, for those kinds of talents. So make a profiling of those employees. And for that, even competency mapping and all other methods can be taken into account, making a profile of the employees. And on that profile, the identification, the potential of the people are to be identified. So number one, while making the profile, there are two things. What are their existing capabilities in terms through seeing their performance, considering their performance, what are their capabilities? Number one. So one thing is their existing performance. Another thing is what is that potential. You see, these are two different things. Existing performance may not always be very good, but the person may have got enough of potential for tomorrow. But he is not getting that opportunity or not getting the proper place or the position of the role where he could have excelled, and that has to be seen by the people who are managing this thing. So I don't think the potential, that's very very important. Finding out what are the areas in which this person can excel, can do good, and he can give a very good performance. Consider the job experience and expertise. That is also one another thing. What is the job experience and what is an expertise, which as he has shown and demonstrated earlier. Well, the job experience, expertise, performance, and potential. But another very important thing, that is the learning capability. There are certain people who are highly, I mean, they can you can make them learn things very easily because they are interested to learn and they have the capability to learn things very fast. That itself is a very good quality. That itself is a part of talent because that capability to imbibe certain things and learn certain things quickly, that itself is a very big quality. So, what is that capability to learn certain things quickly? And what is that existing skills? So, making a profiling of the employees will help us to find out who is suitable for what kind of talent needs in the organization. So by profiling, by identifying his potential, by seeing his performance, by seeing his experience and expertise, by seeing what is learning capability and his skills. Matching employees to needs. Yes, this is something, you'll find different kinds of people. This is something, the attitude of the people are different in in the organization. So you see that in what category in general these people fall into. And the high parts and the high potential people. There are some people who have got high potential. And high potential people, you can always consider them to be used in any area where he has got the potential. And you can really keep them as a always you can keep them in your hand whenever you can use them. So high potential people, there will be some people who is may not be that high potential people, but they're very steady. Steady in the sense they're reliable, they're honest, they're hardworking, and they will never, betray you. They remain in the organization. There are some people they've got high, self-belongingness, the belongingness to the organization. So they're the steady people. There are some people who are maybe highly talented, highly knowledgeable, but if he's in the sense he has got many conditions at different points of time. If this happens, then what will happen? If this happens, then what will happen? So he cannot deal with him very straight and becomes difficult. Even those are certain qualities which uh, helps to determine, to decide who is going to be employed and deployed where, who is going to be an asset to the organization. And there are some people who are always at any point of time you give them any responsibility or anything, they will say first they will say no. So the negative kind of people can also be present in the organization. So to see which people are suitable, the employees, when you are selecting the people who are going to be placed where, you have to find out the capabilities, the qualities, the skills of the people, so that when the organization can make the right decision to deploy them at different places. Identification of performance gaps and potential. As I said earlier also, that everything is being derived from the fact that what are the gaps in the organization in terms of performance, what are the gaps in terms of the individual performance also. Earlier you have seen the gap in the organizational performance, expected and the current performance. But when you talk of the identifying the people, we need to find out what is the capability of the person in terms of his performance and what is expected from him. where there is a gap. So first thing, classify employees in terms of performance gap. Who is highly, say this is coming in the question of developing people. When there is a high gap, you need to see why there is a high gap and how can you meet up that gap. The performance gaps are to be identified. Classifying the employees in terms of potential. So it's in two things, the gaps and potential. If there is a gap and there is no potential, then it is useless to go for him. If there is a gap and he has got high potential, it's better to develop those people so that they can really become an asset to the organization. So finding out the gaps in the potential alongside is very the most important thing, the most important direction. So find the classify the people in terms of the potential. Classify the people in terms of employee preparedness, how far they are ready to accept the opportunity, how far they are ready to accept the responsibility. That preparedness is one very important thing from the part of the employee. Their readiness to accept anything, and that will show their attitude, their attitude towards the thing, towards the organization. Prepared, not prepared, never prepared. There will be some kind of people who are always prepared, then asset to the organization. They can throw themselves anywhere, in any responsibility give them, they're always ready to accept it. Because ultimately everything happens, it's only depends upon your attitude. The way you accept the thing, you can always do that. So some people are always prepared. Some people are not prepared, but you have to push them up. So they come in the second category of people. Yes, whenever there is no other people, prepared people are not available, then we need to motivate those people and push those people and find out people from that not prepared list. And there are certain people who are never prepared. It's better to keep them in the next list, whenever there is no other way out, because those are being useless. So preparing, prepared, not prepared, and never prepared, that is a classification of the employees who are going to be used. Strategies for dealing with employees of different preparedness. How we are going to deal with them.
Excuse me,
No.
sir. Excuse me, sir.
Hello?
Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah?
Sir, can you explain it this never prepared once again, because I could not understand this. I
Oh, never
understood.
prepared. Huh.
Yes,
Never
yes, yes.
prepared in the sense they are the people who are very difficult to get them motivated. So you have to take a decision. That is the
Okay,
next point which I was going to tell you. The strategies for dealing with employees of different preparedness. Now, if there is
okay.
a person is well prepared, no problem. They're very good. We can use them at any place wherever we want. As the person who is not prepared, but by pushing them, by motivating them, they can be made prepared. But there are some people who are never prepared, means they're very difficult to really motivate them. So what we are going to do in that case, we will take a administrative decision in that case. Either by developing or motivating or by giving them training, they should be can be made. It sometimes happens like this. The person is highly talented, the person is highly knowledgeable, so everything was fine, but he is not prepared. I mean, his attitude is not to that extent.
So,
Or his
so if I'm not wrong, mean that person is having a negative attitude. Mean
Yes,
he
of
want.
course. Yes, of
Hmm?
course. That negative
Okay.
attitude maybe he has developed because of certain reasons. If there is a reason, then that can be sorted out. That's fine. Somebody may have got some grievance also. So if that can be sorted out, it's fine. If it cannot be sorted out, then administrative decisions are to be taken. Are you getting my
So
point?
in that case, what you said mean the person need to be
Just
counseled by HR personnel.
one second, please. Yeah.
See, I mean to say, what you suggest mean if the person is never prepared, mean here that person can be motivated by the counseling by the HR personnel, or the second option might be mean better organization need to take decision about him. Is that
Absolutely.
like that?
Yes, of course. Of course, it is always there. If
Okay.
somebody is not changing his means, he is never prepared, he becomes negative. You can motivate, you can talk to him, you can tell him, but if he is not prepared, then there are administrative procedures that has to be followed. The first thing, we should never always try to use this thing. The organization should always try to find out the reason of his becoming getting that lack in the preparedness, lacking in their attitude, why it is so. There may be some reason, but if that reason
Correct,
is
sir.
not
Correct.
satisfied, then there is no other way out but to take administrative action. That is will always be there,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Thank you,
So,
sir.
okay,
Thank you. Now I understood.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, identification of performance gaps and potential now to make a development strategy. Now, we're going to make a development strategy. You see what I'm saying, not making a development plan only, you're saying making a development strategy. The moment we say that, it's a preparedness, keeping in view the environmental factors and the competitors and everything around. So you need to establish a goal, very clear goal, need to specify the developmental activities, what activities are required to be done so that one can achieve the goal. The developmental activities in the sense how we are going to develop people, what kind of trainings are to be given. Is it only the training or do we require to change some culture of the organization? Certain things are to be given, other extra apart from the training. So the training and development of people, what activities we are going to take. Are you going to give some kind of coaching? Are you going to give some kind of mentoring? What kind of development activities you are going to adopt? That has to be decided. Setting the time horizon. That this development is for how much period? Are you going to develop people indefinitely? No. So there must be a time horizon. We should develop people for 6 months or 3 months or 2 months, and then you want this kind of results from them, expectations from them. So, and when you and in what time period we are going to conduct the programs and all that, so that you can get a prepared to people at the end of 3 months or 6 months or 8 months, whatever it is. Setting the time horizon is important. Identifying the resource availability. That if you are going to develop people, what are the resources required, and do we have these resources with us? Resources in terms of the training and the trainer, the faculty, the consultants, and all of the resources required for in a training process. Those resources. Identifying the evaluation criteria. Yes, the training is given with a purpose of developing the people. Now, has that development taken place really at the end of the time horizon when you're expecting that to happen? If not so, then where lies the problem? Where lies the issue? Can you change that process? So identifying the evaluation criteria. So we have to identify that what are the criteria on the basis of which you make the evaluation, whether it is in terms of the visible performance of the people, or it is in terms of his attitude, his behavior, in terms of his productivity. What are the criteria against which we will compare this to find out and make an evaluation? Creating a commitment, a development strategy when you make, and there needs to have a time horizon and a commitment that this is to be done by the end of certain period. The people who are involved in this process has to make commitment. That commitment is very important. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. And then there, of course, the implementation of the developmental programs. So after doing all these things, they need to have some implementation. And for that implementation, for doing that implementation, who is going to do what? Specifying the roles of the different managers. Who are going to do what? In HR department, who is going to do what? In different departments for identification of the talent, how they are going to give the input to the training department or the talent management department, the role of the manager, the plan, the resource and budget. They need to make the plan of the resources and making the budget. Who is going to do what? Who is going to do that? Right? Now, since we are going to make a development process with an eye that organization should have talented people in the times to come, not only in the current but in the future also. So then there is a requirement of people who are to be developed. So participation of people from within the organization is a very important process. People who have got certain potential or talents or desire to grow and desire to learn, they should be welcome so that they become a participant in the process of the development. And so that in the implementation process, interested people, of course, interested and after assessment, if it can be found that they are the suitable people, they should be given the opportunities also. They should need for making the plan for coaching and mentoring program wherever it's required, depending on the level of people, depending upon the requirement of the organization, the coaching and mentoring program, uh, wherever required, you have to make a plan for that. Initiate action and periodical assessment. And after implementation, the action is to be initiated. And of course, every action has to be initiated, has to be done, accompanied with the periodical assessment at different levels. Those are to be assessed, and actions are to be initiated for any change. Last but not the least, the evaluation and adjustment. You need to make, they should make evaluation. And why adjustment? After evaluation, wherever there is need for making any adjustment, that has to be made. So there must be a schedule for feedback. The feedback is very important, that how this is going to happen, how the people are developed, and the what way the feedback is being received, how this is really going to contribute. Periodical review progress, that has to be done. A periodical review of the talent identification development program. A review of that has to be made, whether it was effective, suitable for the organization, is it really going to contribute something to the organization. There is a need for mental agility. Mental agility, there in the sense, as I said in earlier, that speed is a very important thing here in the talent management process, and the people have to be agile in the sense the requirement of the organization, keeping in view the very dynamic changing scenario around. People have to be highly agile in doing their actions and procedures and process. Adjust activities as needed wherever there is a need for making any adjustment in the activities, that is to be done. So in this entire process we have seen the very small topics, but the important thing is focusing here that we need to identify people, the talents that to be identified, and we need to develop them. Very small thing. So that identification and development goes hand in hand. Once we identify them, and for that identification, the first requirement will be finding the need, and then finding the talents that is required, and the third will be required to finding the people who have got those talents, and then need to make administrative and procedural aspects that to be done, and this is to be implemented in the organization, so that ultimately the organization gets the benefit of this development process. Well, that comes to the end of this program. If you got any question, please do ask me.
Sir,
Please,
seventh step, can you explain once again?
please once again, which question?
Sir, seventh step, seventh.
Seven.
Sir, matching employees to needs.
Okay.
Yes.
Ah, matching employee to needs. See, and the sense key. This is simply an the attitude of the people. There'll be. We have seen the quality, the skills, and everything, the potential, but there are certain attitudes of people, and one has to take care of that also. There are people who are high potential people, and they are, I mean, highly good attitude people. Then there is no problem. They are the best category of people. There are people who are studies. Study people is also required. These are different kind of people. They may not be highly, I mean, talented, but they are highly reliable. They are honest. They are reliable. You can depend upon them. And such kind of people are also required, and that also becomes a very important quality. Suppose you want to put a person in a managerial position. It is not only the talent that is important there. His reliability, his sincerity is also a very, very important thing. So you have to make a balance between the two. So see that what the studies. And what the if is. If is means these people are, there are many ifs and buts with them. I mean, they will do the work, but they'll have many questions. At every point of time, they will have their own conditions in front of you. Maybe they're highly knowledgeable, highly talented people, but there will be very many conditions, and that will decide the suitability of a person in a particular position. And the knots are the most difficult people. Not means it's not that they're not working, they're working, but the moment you say something to take a responsibility, initially you will say no, and then he will do it. You know, so they're the knots. I mean, they're always surrounded by the negative attitude. This, so these are all qualities of people. It is not only the skill and capability and knowledge and is important. The attitude of people is also very, very important. So when you're matching employee to the needs of the organization, we keep in view these attributes, these behavioral aspects, these attitudinal points also. Yes, do you get my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anybody else? I don't know how many people are there. Seven, six, seven, I think.
Hi, sir. I have a question.
Hello. Little louder, please.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask, what is the role of the functional head or the reporting head in the overall talent management framework in terms of ownership other than HR? Because, normally when we develop individual development plan for the high potential, especially, or high performers, so they just, feel that it's the complete responsibility of HR to give the trainings and that's it. So, 20 or 70%, I wanted to understand.
I mean, you want the role to want to understand the role of
Reporting manager.
reporting manager. Okay. Or the departmental manager, departmental heads.
Yes, because
Yeah.
they feel that it's the complete responsibility of human resource
Mm-hmm.
management team to develop and employ when we have individual development plans in
Mm-hmm.
terms of 10, 20, 70 principle that we make.
Mm-hmm. See, the moment we say that talent management in any organization, it's a entirely I mean, changed mindset in the sense a different kind of culture is to be inculcated in the organization. Otherwise, it will nothing but it will become only an HR department or a training function or HR function. How to differentiate between the two? It requires more strategic outlook. More strategic outlook. That means that outlook has to be changed. That culture has to be brought into the organization, and that's why involvement of the top management is highly important. Who can visualize that this is where we are going to take our organization tomorrow, because tomorrow's organization will survive only there are talented people. The human capital is present. And so, from that point of view, when you bring that kind of culture, the departmental heads or the reporting managers or the HR department, they need to collaborate with each other. We cannot just say because the HR person does not know about the uh, the the technical understanding of a particular position, the skill, right? That is understandable maybe by the reporting manager or the person who is in the departmental head. So there is a need for making a collaboration between the two, and that is possible when there is a changed culture, right? And so, as you have said, and many times you may have seen that whatever you are discussing here is also there in HR management, in HRD. What extra we are doing? Extra is here in the outlook, in the entire outlook. Now, we are not searching for people only. We are only searching for people who are particular, who have got particular talent matching with the requirement of the organization. So, keeping in view that point of view, there will change culture and the reporting manager will have equal participation in the sense he will specify what kind of people is required to achieve particular strategic objectives of the organization. So, has got a big role to play. It is not merely this is my requirement now. Please bring me such and such people. No, it should be. It is expected that there should have complete understanding and involvement of the people. Am I being able to say something to you? Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Anybody else?
No, it's fine, sir. It's fine.
Hello.
Yeah, it's fine, sir. It's fine.
Thank you very much for being with me. See you next time. All the best. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.